On August 4th, 1981, in Toledo, Ohio, 20-year-old Cynthia Cindy Jane Anderson arrived for another day of work. She was a legal secretary, quiet and dependable, who had been saving for college and planned to join her boyfriend at Bible school in just 2 weeks. Cindy came from a deeply religious household and was known as a kind, responsible young woman. She had a reputation for never missing work, always being on time, and never leaving without telling someone where she was going. Which is why her sudden disappearance that morning has haunted investigators, family, and the city of Toledo for more than 4 decades. The day began as usual. She parked her 1980 Chevy Citation outside the law offices of James Rabbit and Jay Feldstein, located on East Manhattan Boulevard in a small strip mall. She wore a white V-neck dress with pink pinstripes, cinnamon brown pantyhose, and beige open-toed ankle-strap sandals. She looked professional, neat, and put together. Cindy was last positively seen around 9:30 a.m. when a janitor spotted her through the office window. She appeared to be working at her desk, reading a novel while waiting for the attorneys to arrive later that morning. But when Rabbit and Feldstein returned around noon, Cindy was gone. The office door was locked from the inside, just as it usually was. The air conditioning and radio were on. The mail had been pushed through the slot and left tucked in the handle of the front door. Her romance novel lay open on her desk, opened chillingly to a passage where the main character is abducted at knife point. What was missing were Cindy's purse and car keys. Her vehicle was still parked in the lot, locked, with nothing disturbed inside. She had vanished without a sound. There were no signs of forced entry, no signs of struggle. The desk phone wasn't placed on hold, and she hadn't left her usual note to say if she'd stepped out for an errand. For co-workers who knew her habits, it was instantly alarming. But what makes Cindy's disappearance even stranger is the context leading up to it. In the weeks before she vanished, Cindy had been the target of harassing phone calls. They frightened her so much that her employers had a buzzer installed under her desk, a silent alarm she could press to alert neighboring offices in case of danger. She also confided to her mother that she had been having vivid, terrifying dreams of being abducted and murdered by someone she knew. Her mother tried to comfort her, but the dreams weighed heavily on Cindy. There were other disturbing details. Across from her office, on the side of a building visible from her desk window, someone had spray-painted the words, "I love you, Cindy," by GW. The graffiti was removed, only to reappear again. Police interviewed multiple men with those initials, including a maintenance worker who had access to the property, but nothing tied him directly to Cindy's disappearance. On August 3rd, the day before she vanished, a client noticed Cindy take a phone call that left her visibly shaken. She hung up abruptly, pale and unsettled. The man was so concerned he later called police to suggest they check on her. And then, on the morning of August 4th, she simply vanished. The days that followed brought no answers. A month later, a mysterious tip came into police. A woman called and claimed Cindy was being held against her will in the basement of a white house on the outskirts of Toledo. She said the house belonged to a family with 2 sons, who were allegedly involved in drugs. But when police pressed for the address, the caller hung up. She called back multiple times, repeating the story, but always disconnected before providing enough information to track her down. To this day, her identity has never been confirmed, and no location matching the vague description was ever found. Over time, investigators focused on 2 major theories. The first pointed toward Cindy's own workplace. In 1995, years after she vanished, her boss, Richard Neller, the very attorney she worked for, was convicted in connection with a major drug trafficking operation alongside a man named Jose Rodriguez Jr. Some detectives believe Cindy may have overheard conversations or discovered incriminating information in her role as a secretary. A jailhouse informant later claimed Rodriguez had confessed to killing her to keep her silent, but the testimony was considered unreliable, and no physical evidence supported the claim. The second theory looked at the possibility of a serial predator. At the time, Toledo was terrorized by brothers Anthony and Nathaniel Cook, who would eventually be convicted of multiple murders and assaults during the late 1970s and early 1980s. Investigators questioned them about Cindy, but both denied involvement, and no evidence linked them to her disappearance. Decades later, the trail is still cold. No trace of Cindy has ever been found. Her bank account, untouched since the day she vanished. Her Social Security number never used again. It was as if she simply ceased to exist after stepping away from her desk that morning. The pain for her family was immeasurable. Cindy's mother passed away just 2 years later, never knowing what became of her daughter. Her father lived until 2008, still searching for answers. Cindy had been an only child, and her disappearance shattered the Anderson family. The mystery has endured through media coverage, including unsolved mysteries and true crime investigations that continue to revisit the case. For many, the haunting image remains that of the open romance novel on Cindy's desk, its fictional abduction scene frozen in place, mirroring the young secretary's own disappearance. Cynthia Jane Anderson was just 20 years old with her life ahead of her. 2 weeks shy of leaving for Bible college, she had dreams, a steady boyfriend, and a future that should have been full of promise. Instead, her name has been etched into one of Ohio's most baffling unsolved mysteries. Over 40 years later, the question lingers. Did she stumble upon something dangerous at work? Was she targeted by someone who had been harassing her? Or did she fall prey to a predator passing through Toledo? Until answers surface, her case will remain a chilling reminder of how quickly an ordinary day can turn into an enduring nightmare.